In front of me are both generations of Qualcomm's attempts at a Windows-based ARM chip. Old versus new in not quite a fair fight, but let's see how it goes. Did I get it? I did! Ooh, that was an absolute shellacking. Although you do remember me saying earlier that this isn't a fair fight. Well, it's because the older chip in this Microsoft laptop is a base model of the original Qualcomm ARM chips, whereas the ASUS laptop has some form of X2 Elite in it, which is a higher end equivalent chip. At least I think so. Somehow Qualcomm has managed to make a naming structure that's even more opaque than their competitors. Unfortunately, it's all I had at hand, but don't worry, later on in the video we will be getting very unfair against the ASUS laptop. And then we'll try do some other terrible things to it. But before we get into that, today's video is sponsored by everybody's favorite retailer, Micro Center, and their April desktop deal sale event, where they have some crazy deals on systems like this power spec model with a 5070 Ti and 32 gigs of DDR5 for $1,900. Micro Center is also having a grand reopening event at their North Jersey location and opening an Austin, Texas location. Sign up for a 128 gig flash drive down below. And while you're down there, check out Micro Center News for some tech news action. Links for everything down below. Now, I've been super excited about Qualcomm's second attempt at some laptop ARM chips, and we get to interact with them inside these lovely new ASUS Zenbooks. Now, ASUS sent over both a 16 and a 14-inch version of these new Zenbooks with different configurations in them. The 16-inch model goes real hard with a bunch of RAM and storage, whereas the 14-inch model is way more tame. I'm curious to see what the performance difference is going to be between these two. Ooh, I can't wait to feel that design. Now, the 16-inch model comes with this 130-watt power brick, whereas the 14-inch one comes with this physically much smaller 100-watt power brick, which both bodes really well for the power draw of these systems, at least depending on how powerful they are. Ooh, I bet a Tuscan Raider would love this laptop. It would just fit their drip so well. Now, the first thing that you notice about these new Zenbooks is the material that it's made of. ASUS's new Serra Aluminium. Now, I've gooned about Serra Aluminium in a video before, and I still really love it in this laptop here. Now, the 16-inch version comes in like a sand color, which in some lights looks really nice. In other lights, it looks a little hearing aid beige. Although I like it, I think it's good. They sent over the 14-inch one in a more plain gray, but generally there are some pretty interesting colors for these laptops. Another thing that really stands out about these laptops is how light they are. They weigh so little. In terms of I/O, both laptops have the same left I/O, whereas the 16-inch laptop gains an SD card reader on the right. Now, both laptops passed the one-hand open test with flying colors. In fact, the hinge feels relatively light, but it kind of makes sense because the whole laptop, again, is surprisingly light considering that this is a 16-inch device. It's way lighter than like a MacBook, for example. But in here, you get a massive trackpad. It is gargantuan, and it has a pretty solid texture to it, although you can tell that it gets dirty pretty quickly, something which you can't say for Serra Aluminium. Serra Aluminium holds up to my gross cottage cheese hands pretty well. Keyboard-wise, XL losers are going to be disappointed by even the 16-inch one. We do not have a numpad on here, but that is an interesting feeling typing experience. There's a little bit more of a like squidgy resistance to the key than I've pretty much ever felt in a laptop before. That is interesting. I think I like it. Do I? I'll have to use it more. I'll report back to you on that. Oh, and look at that. The laptop's got a little Star Trek power button. Oh, wait. No, it's not the power button. That's so disappointing. Why is that the power button? You should have made it that little thing. Why? But anyway, with the power button disappointment out the way, let's jump into the future, tear open the 16-inch version of this laptop so that we can see what options for shenanigans we have later in the video. And the first thing that I notice is that it seems like ASUS has switched to the same screw supplier as Apple, because they've even got the like concentric circles in them. That's cool. It's a good screw supplier because these are beautiful screws. it's so bendy. Oh, there's something about the way this material flexes that makes it feel like I'm degloving a baby seal. Ugh. Oh, there we go. Whoa, it's so thin. Okay, so now we know why this laptop's so light. The Cera aluminium is so thin. Look at that. That's why it doesn't weigh anything. Now, when it comes to internals, this is pretty standard modern laptop. There is very little upgradability we have here. We can drop a new M.2 drive in here, which is reasonable. That makes it a bit better than like a MacBook, but we can't upgrade things like RAM, unfortunately, because of how exotically modern laptop architectures integrate RAM into their architecture or whatever, I guess. Is that an excuse? I don't know. We've got a reasonably sized battery in here and some actual heat sinks. Look at that. Now, back in the past, before the vivisection, I set up both of the laptops, and during the setup process, noted how snappy both of them felt, which is good. But with that, let's see how the lower spec A14 handles some gaming. Now with CS2, we're starting off at 1080p low settings, and it's actually going pretty well already. We've got, well, I mean, okay, in all fairness, a stuttery 80 frames per second in CS2 is actually an abomination. So never mind, this is not going great. Oh, it's so stuttery. Why? I mean, we are pretty much fully utilizing our RAM, so that might be why. Oh, it's so bad. It might be growing pains though. Maybe it'll get better. Let's give it this first run and then we'll take it from there.
Approximately 10 hours later.
It doesn't seem to be getting better. It is still very stuttery. Like, look at that. Oh no. Oh, okay, well, it's running pretty well. Like, we've got almost 100 frames per second with Doom Eternal at 1200p medium settings, which, again, this game will run on a Mattel toaster, but, you know, it's running here. Now, with Cyberpunk, we're doing 1080p, or like 1200p, I guess, medium settings. So we're not very aggressive here at all, and it is not going great, oh no. We're in the mid to low 20s in terms of frame rate, and it feels like it. This is a terrible feeling 20 frames per second. Now, of course, as is always the case with potatoes, we had to hit up some Fidelity FX at balanced settings. Oh, that's made a massive difference. We've jumped into the 40s now, and it's actually kind of usable feeling. This is good now. The display feels great. Obviously it does. It's an OLED. It's not surprising. But yeah, with a reasonable amount of upscaling in Cyberpunk, we are getting a borderline playable experience, which, you know, this is very much not its intended use case, so at least it works. But with that, let's see how its geriatric older sibling holds up to it in terms of gaming. Now, when it comes to the iGPUs in these Snapdragon X chips, there's very little information other than it being a Qualcomm Adreno chip, and the fact that our Snapdragon X2 Elite 18-core chip in the 14-inch laptop is an X290 chip, compared to the X185 chip in the old Snapdragon X Plus. So aside from them getting their names from the Elon Musk baby name book, I don't really know anything about these chips, so let's just see how they compare. Now, with the older laptop, I've enabled hardware info's overlays, so we've got CPU at the top and GPU at the bottom, which we'll do for the next ARM-based laptop that we're going to test with the high-end Snapdragon chip in it. But this is actually not that much worse than what we were seeing from the A14, the newer chip. Having said that, there's not no difference. We went from nice frame rate with the old laptop to 78 frames per second on the new one, although the older laptop didn't have the same stuttering issue, so actually has a much higher 1% low, which is pretty embarrassing. However, when we move over to Doom Eternal, the newer laptop absolutely decimates the old Snapdragon chip with a huge frame rate jump, and we didn't have the same stuttering issues in Doom Eternal, which is good. And then finally, Cyberpunk. Oh no, Cyberpunk did not go great for the old Snapdragon chip, although it really didn't run well on the new one either. So let's try out the big boy, the A16, which also has, I guess, the same iGPU chip in it than the smaller one, but it might be clocked a bit higher according to the website, so maybe that'll help. Okay, straight off the bat, it's maybe going a little bit better than it was on the A14, the previous new laptop. Our utilizations are very low, but that kind of makes sense for CS2. Especially on an ARM device, I don't think it likes ARM very much. What is interesting is we are seeing a lot more RAM utilization, and the stutters actually seem to not be... I spoke too soon, it's still stuttering. But the stutters were much less frequent, leading to a sizable jump in performance. Granted, we are talking about Counter-Strike 2 at 1080p-ish running at low settings here, so anything less than like 300 frames per second is pretty much a war crime. Doom Eternal also saw a reasonable uptick in performance with the A16, getting us to 100 frames per second. Wow. And then finally with Cyberpunk, we actually got 40 frames per second on the A16, which is a similar result as we got with all of the Fidelity FX on the smaller laptop. I then ran the Cyberpunk test on my 16-inch MacBook Pro with a base M2 Pro chip in it and 16 gigs of RAM, and the 3-generation-old MacBook Pro actually outperformed the A16. Now, I also ran some Cinebench R23 on both laptops, and luckily here Qualcomm does gain back a little bit of dignity, because it does kinda thrash the M2 Pro chip. So the takeaway here is that Qualcomm clearly needs to put some work into its iGPU. Which got me thinking, what if we shift the GPU burden off to something that doesn't suck butt cheeks? Now my plan is to try and find a hole to plug this external RX 7600 XT into this laptop. Now this is an Oculink based external GPU, so I can't just plug it into a USB port, which is unfortunate considering that this laptop just has one M.2 slot, which means if I use one of these M.2 to Oculink adapters in this laptop, I'm not going to have an operating system in this laptop. Unless, surely there's a way to boot an operating system off like an external drive, right? Well, apparently there is. Step number 1, write your ARM Windows 11 install to an external hard drive or flash drive using Haslow's Win to USB. Step number 2 is just removing this drive, and then next we're gonna plug the drive in and see if it actually works, because that's an important part of this, if we can actually get Windows to boot off of an external drive. The battery is plugged in. I am living dangerously at this point, but let's see how it goes.
A few moments later.
I don't know, it's not doing much other than shouting at me. I mean, let's unplug the external display. Oh, we've got speakers falling out of things. Oh, we've got display this time. Default boot device missing. Okay, we were expecting that. Hey, it reads the drive, that's very promising. Boot failed. Oh. Next, I changed some BIOS settings and turned off Secure Boot, hoping that would help. Okay, so that picks up the drive. So then if we say enter, that's very promising. It is first boot. So it will take a while. A while came and went, and all it did was boot cycle agonizingly. It seems to be trying real hard, but it seems to also very much not be working. I then replaced the stock Windows 11 install to see how Windows 11 on the laptop would interact with the external boot drive. Wait, it corrupted the whole drive? Okay, that's actually really annoying because I don't have the Windows 11 ARM ISO with me at the office, and unfortunately, for some reason, Microsoft seems to host their ISOs on a donkey-powered colonoscopy machine because they take forever to download. So this is really annoying, but yeah, give me 3 years, I'll be back. Luckily, the Windows donkey was feeling extra vigorous today because the ISO didn't take as long as I was expecting for it to download. I then made a boot to USB drive using an actual flash drive this time, which gave me different options in Haslow's software. And once that was finished writing, I very excitedly plugged it into the laptop, and it also didn't work. Which leads us to step 15 at this point, I think, which is just to break down in tears and message my contact at ASUS begging them to come save me. For them to reply with, "Dawid, I don't mean to burst your bubble here, but Qualcomm doesn't have external GPU drivers for Windows 11 because, well, no one's been stupid enough to try this yet." Which I guess brings me to the end of the video, so thank you very much for watching. Go check out the latest video I did with Anna trying some sim racing gear. Here, just click on it right here, and subscribe on your way there. And until the next video, bye-bye.